In a second, I'm going to have Jesse Suki come up here. He's the Director of Office of Planning. He's going to give you a little bit of background on why we're here. And then we'll, yeah? Oh, I'm sorry. We're not going to do that. We're going to have a puli. I always skip this. Rocky Kaluhiva was kind enough to offer to get us started tonight.
Aloha kako. E koma ko e no kokolani. Mahalo ke aku for bringing us all here together. I also come before my kupuna who's here with me now. Our ancestors from Heeia. We ask that you guide us in this meeting tonight for the betterment of this ahapua of Heeia. We ask this in your name, Mr. Christo. Amen. Amen.
Very wise words. If anyone doesn't know where the restroom is, it is out this door here. You go up a flight of steps and you walk alongside that building to the very end and it's on your right. So it's a bit of a walk. There we go. All right, Jesse.
Hello, thank you for having us back again. Sorry, I'm a little bit wrinkled because I was carrying my son. This is a project. I'm Jesse Suki. I'm the director of the Office of Planning, and we're here because we're invited to come and help the community through this process. It's a great project. I think, in our line of work, we get a lot of requests from developers for assistance, and so when we get requests from the actual community to help with something, we're really happy to do that and encouraged to do it. This National Estuarine Research Reserve is a program that focuses on education and research. So it's very focused on those issues. The process for having this site being the quote-unquote preferred site was a public, ongoing process. If you have this in your handouts, you'll see that we have the different phases listed out for you in there. If I could just quickly go through that. There was a phase one where there was draft criteria. That criteria, there's 17 of them, and that's also in your packet on the second page. That criteria is criteria that's required stuff. Those are the federal requirements, the first 7. And then there's some additional criteria. One of the criteria that I draw your attention to is number 12, which is accessible or ability to be made accessible to a wide range of public, including Native Hawaiian groups, residents, visitors, including students of all ages and abilities. So among those 17 criteria, that was an important criteria that the committee looked at. So we had a consultant that helped us through that process. There was a site evaluation and selection committee that was formed. We solicited public input for potential sites. It was not input, but more of an application process. We had one and sort of like a half applications, and so we extended the period because we wanted more than 2 applications. By the end of that second extension, we still just had 2. And so the committee reviewed the 2 applications that they received. And the recommendation based on the criteria was to go with the Heeia site. And that was moved forward by the committee, and that's why we're here today, because the next part after you find the site that you want to move forward through this initial process is to get more of the broad public input, which is what we're looking for. The application that was submitted for the Heeia project, if you look, I'm looking for the question. If you look on page 2 of your handouts, it's the blue block. What these are, there's different colored blocks. It's all the comments we received, and then we prepared some responses based on the comments. But that comment there lists out some of the people who are part of the application for Heeia. So Kako Iwi, Paipai o Heeia, Ko'olau Poko Hawaiian Civic Club, Ko'olau Foundation, and then the HIMB, right, Hawaii Institute for Marine Biology. So those were the those are the folks who put together the application and moved it forward. And so now if you look at the site selection process again, we're on this part where we're having the public meeting in the vicinity of the proposed area. The other thing I wanted to point out to you in your handouts is what NER is and what NER is not. And this is based on some of the comments we got. So the NER site is a living laboratory. It's a partnership between the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration and the coastal state. It provides a source of guidance, resources, funding to improve coastal management in the area. It's managed on a daily basis by a lead agency or the university with input from local partners. So, just on that point, we're not here today to talk about a management plan. What we're talking about here today in the process is this the site that we want to have nominated? And if the site is nominated, then the next process would be to talk about management plan. And with that management plan process, there's input from the community that develops that management plan. And to stay on that point for a little bit more, one of the comments that we had at the last meeting was that, we have the Kaneohe Bay plan, right? And that kind of wasn't implemented, so why we have this other plan that we're going to do? Two things. If the site is nominated and then you develop the plan for the near site, that is specifically about that near site area, the boundary that's up there, and you can comment on the boundary. And it's specifically about connecting education, science, cultural community activities into sort of one programmatic endeavor. It's not like the Kaneohe Bay Master Plan, which is the big, larger plan, which looks at all kinds of issues for the whole Kaneohe Bay area, and it's broad. It's much wider, the boundaries, than what we're talking about for the near. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if you think about it and you look at it, and we looked at it when the issue was raised the last time, because we took the comments you raised very seriously. We looked at the Kaneohe Bay Plan, and we noticed that some of the issues that are in there, like monitoring. So this is language straight from the K-Bay Plan, right? Monitoring, wetlands issues, education, nearshore environment, fish ponds, gauging, stream management. A lot of those things admittedly hasn't been implemented, but through the near management plan, it can be. So elements of the Kaneohe Bay Plan could be implemented through the NEAR's project, if that's what you folks choose to do. And the good thing about being a NEAR site is that you get money and support for doing that. So, one way to think about it is if you're interested in implementing aspects of the Kaneohe Bay Plan, this is a good way of getting at least elements of the plan implemented. So going back to that, what is a NEAR site? It's an opportunity to expand education for K-12 students, teachers, and adults, a way to support research. And then what a NEAR is not, and this is important, it's not a ban on existing uses or activities in the area. And we're not just saying that. We actually looked at other NEAR sites in the country. There's 28 of them. They have active fishing, gathering, boating. They have other activities in the NEAR site. The question that you folks are going to have to think about as the community when it's time to develop the plan is how do you want the resources in the area to be managed in the context of education and science activities? I mean, that's really up to you guys in partnership with HIMB and the groups who submitted the application. But it can be whatever you want it to be. And that's true about other sites, about how you manage resources, who has access, who's doing what. But the bottom line is that the plan itself doesn't ban existing uses or activities. It's not a sanctuary or a refuge. This is not like the Humpback Whale Sanctuary. And it's not top-down management because it's the local community has input the whole time in the management process. So I'm just going through the materials, and the other thing I wanted to just kind of briefly go over, because what we want to do is not have me talk or have us talk, but have you guys talk. So just real briefly, we want to give you an opportunity to look at these things in your materials. And these are the comments that you all submitted at the last meeting, and all the comments we received up until February 9th. Right, Rebecca? Up until February 9th. all the comments we received up until February 9th. Yeah. And the reason why we cut it off there, because we wanted time to respond. So we responded to all the comments we received until February 9th, but we're still receiving comments. So it doesn't mean we stopped taking comments or not going to respond to comments. It's just that for this meeting, we responded to all the ones we received up until February 9th. We're going to be receiving comments continuously from this meeting, and the yellow paper in the front that you can fill out, and the email address and website that you can see on this. You know, if you have comments, tell your friends, whatever, people who live in the community, submit comments. So, with that said, here's the comments that we were able to develop responses for you from. We want you to take a look at those, but just briefly, one question was about use of the bay. That's the purple box on page 1 of that handout. And in summary, the NER designation does not change current uses on the site. There was some concerns about enforcement and current regulations. In summary, existing enforcement will continue within the NER site boundaries as it already is, whatever the current enforcement is. And again, to reiterate that point, we looked at other NER sites in the country, and you know, you can do it in different ways, but what most sites do is they use existing, you know, whatever the existing regulations is to manage the NER site. So they don't invent new permits necessarily. On page 2, there was a question about local management. So this site was proposed by local organizations, University of Hawaii, HIMB, and it's going to be a reserve that would be locally managed with local input. And there's the groups I mentioned that were part of that application. Sustainability of the boundary. I don't really have too much to say about that, but you can look at that comment. Financial impacts, commercial activities. Again, permissible uses in the bay would not be disallowed because of the NER site designation. There were a question about bay restoration. That question was about the site perhaps being impaired or deteriorated. Well, that was just one of 17 criteria for choosing a site, the quality of the site, quote unquote. But this is an opportunity, the designation of Heeia, to support activities and managements of resources that will restore the site. So that could be a positive move in that direction, depending on what you folks want. And then process related, and for process related, I wanted to be sure we really were clear about this, because Office of Planning, who is facilitating this, our job is process. So whether or not the site is nominated or what the management looks like and all that, that's up to you. We just do process. So questions about process, I want to be sure that we cover those. So as part of the site selection process, the public meeting is required to be held in the vicinity of the proposed site. So that's the Heeia, and you can see the boundary up there to my right. Notices were published in the Star Advertiser and other island newspapers when the site proposals were initially solicited. We sent out letters to landowners, emails to stakeholders. Newspaper ads were sent out and published prior to public meetings, these meetings. This meeting in particular was in the Federal Register. Community support was a factor which was addressed in each site proposal by the organizations proposing the site in Heeia. Or in other words, those organizations reached out themselves to their communities. And they already engage in public activities and volunteer days in the Heeia site. So, we tried to put it everywhere. There's minimum requirements about public notice. We're not happy with just minimum. We tried to go beyond what is minimally required, and we tried to get on the coconut wireless, not just put stuff in the newspaper and let as many people as we could possibly know. We put everything on the website, and I know not everybody has access to the web, but it's been there on the website. We have phone numbers you can call. We had it in the materials, we had it in the notices. So I don't know what else we could do, but we tried to give as much notice as possible. That's all I have, because I want to stop talking, and Mickey can tell you what's next. Thank you.
So we will get started with the dialogue here. I have two people that are helping me with the microphone, Justine and So if I could ask you to please take your seats, we'll get started. And just some reminder, so the question today is, do we want to nominate this site? That's really the question. We're not taking a vote, by the way. We're not trying to arm wrestle and come up with a single answer. We want to hear as much as we can from the community, but that is the question. The area of focus is Heeia. And I would guess that there are quite a few people in the room that would like to share a comment or a perspective. So would ask you, if you have the microphone, to kind of use your time wisely and share the time that we have with your neighbors. If you've had an opportunity to have the microphone, if you could wait until other people have done it before we come back to you, so just kind of a self-monitoring system. Again, when you have the microphone, please introduce yourself, your first name, your last name. And please don't be afraid to disagree. If somebody comes up ahead of you and has a different perspective, it's okay. We want to kind of break apart the issues, but not break down the people that have something to say, so be kind to your neighbors. And as much as possible, it really helps us when you tell us not only about problems, but you give us some solutions to those as well. So just a show of hands, who wants to make some comment? Okay. So I have people on both sides of the room, and I'm just going to go back and forth, and I'll look for hands again. So we're going to start over here, I think, gentlemen. Yep. Justine's going to come to you, so you don't have to walk too far.
Aloha kako.
Aloha.
My name is Kaneko Hukia Schultz. I'm the executive director for Kako Oiwi, and also speaking on behalf of the Nature Conservancy. Can you hear me? We support the NER. We're restoring a 400-acre wetland with taro patches in there. And the reason why we support it is the fact that it gives opportunity for our children to really get the best experiences in terms of research and education on how estuaries and estuaries are impacted, whether it's through our farming, fishing, cultural activities. The NER is just a great opportunity for us in terms of funding to further our ability to take care of our children and take care of our kupuna and the future of Hawaii. So, yeah, we definitely strongly support it. Mahalo.
Thank you. So this side of the room, I saw some hands up. Hands up on this side. Oh, we got someone coming to you.
My name is Kelvin Ching, and I was here the other week for the other meeting. My testimony still stands to answer the question. Simply, I oppose. I appreciate that folks went over the comments, you folks heard us. We see some suggestions that you folks have actually listened and put the public comments unenacted on the website. Thank you for that. The fellow earlier, he said, the good things about this NERS is that we can implement parts of the master plan, and I totally disagree with that. They already implemented parts of the master plan, and that's a problem I have with it, is when they implement parts of it, it affects other parts which should have been implemented, but it doesn't get implemented. And the best solution is to not have this NERS. If there's money to be put toward this area, come on down, put it in. Just don't have the designation. The problem that I see is right now, you say that there will be fishing allowed, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. There is nothing, I have seen nothing in any of this that prevents it forever going forward. And that's the problem I have. Okay? And I agree with all the other testimony that came up about opposing it. The definition of an estuarine, it's not all the way out to HIMB. I agree that the lo'i is a good thing for the future. I agree the fish pond is good for the future. That's preserving history. We need that. But we cannot afford the potential to be closing off fishing only for certain people, and not everybody can go. The ocean is for everybody. And that's what's important. So don't let it happen. I disagree. I oppose the NERS designation.
Thank you. Back to this side of the room, just raise your hand. Lady in the green.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Heeia Cavello. I'm kind of wearing multiple hats right now. We're one of the partners that put forth this application. I'm executive director of Paipaio Heeia. But I actually am here tonight to submit testimony on behalf of myself as a 5th generation fisher of Kaneohe. My sister is here as well. Actually, we have a very long line of fishing in our ohana and very long line of family members that have cared for various fish ponds along the Kaneohe Bay coast. I too am very passionate, like my cousin Kelvin, about the Kaneohe Bay Master Plan, as many of our ohana members have contributed 25 years ago when the plan was created. A lot of mana'o and there's a lot of compromise made amongst the varying interests within Kaneohe Bay. 25 years is a very long time. A lot has changed in 25 years. The community has changed, and it's very nice to see the extent to which our community is taking control of our resources. No longer are we standing by and watching others control it for us or telling us what to do. The community is doing what we feel is right to benefit our ahupua'a. I am a Kahalu'u resident. My ohana comes from Ka'alaia and Kahalu'u. I work in Heeia, so I have the privilege, really, of being able to drive to work 5 miles round trip every day and work in my community of which I live in. I pride myself as being a fisher person, not limited to one specific type of fishing, but many different styles of fishing. I love to fish. I love to see my ohana fish. I love to eat fish. I love to see my niece and nephew eat fish. This NEARS designation I am in very strong support of because I feel that our community has a lot to learn. I feel our community needs to learn from examples that are put forth by basically my generation. And I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes or undo what has been done, in the last 25 years. I'm just saying that rather than look at the negatives of the deficiencies that government has in protecting our resources, why not look at the positives of what's going on in the community? And I feel like a NEARS designation for Heeia could provide the much needed resources to support those activities, whether they be stewardship activities, research activities, education activities. I do not feel like, I don't feel threatened in any way by the designation as others may do, and their mistrust of government is, I think, very much founded and rooted in a long history of mistrust. But I feel like it's an opportunity for us to change that. And so I'm here representing myself and my little ohana, and kind of just looking towards a pretty promising future for our community, and not just in Heeia, but up and down the Ko'olaupopo coast. Yeah, Heeia is a very small part of a very large bay of Kaneohe, and so I feel like isolating out Heeia really discounts the other ahupua'a that are within Kaneohe Bay. We don't want to leave them out because they're all part of our estuary, our bigger estuary of Kaneohe, but I feel like Heeia is an opportunity to start someplace. Provide an example, provide a model for others to follow. Mahalo.
Middle of the room, yep. Justine.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Donna Ann Kamehaiku Campbell. My family, the Lehui Kahanupo'a Kea Lono Ohana or Kupa'aina of Heeia. We reside in the ili of Ioleka'a on Kuleana land that has been in our family for well over 150 years. I'm a doctoral candidate at the University of Hawaii, specializing in indigenous politics. But I also currently serve my passion and my community, currently doing ethnographic field notes down in the wetland of Heeia in Hawaii. I'm here to provide testimony in support of the selection of Heeia as a NER site. I'm studying environmental policy planning as well as natural resource environment management, and I support totally community-based resource management through collaborative partnerships. These partnerships produce and contain and draw from a wealth of knowledge, skills, education, and mostly, the most important part, a cultural foundation which serves the aina, the vai, and the kai of our ahupua'a, including nearshore fisheries. The benefits of a designation as a NER site will enable research peeps, okay? Let us not be afraid. Research that will aid Heeia in managing one of the most precious mixes of kai and vai, that of our estuary. No? This is where the vai meets the kai, right? This is where the mix of brackish waters produce our muli vai. No? This muli vai is extremely important and a vital, necessary component to a functioning ecosystem that hopes to restore itself. So, here in Heeia, our muli vai remains. Mai kai, mahalo ke akua. Yeah? We still have that muli vai. But it has been under the onslaught of environmental and historical rain degradation, all kinds of things that have happened over the last 25 to 100, and even further than that, years of history of neglect, and now being restored by our younger generations. And this is why we must support it and not be afraid. As a community, each and every one of us has the ability to be a part of this, to address any fears you may have about the banning or the kapu of fishing in certain places. You are here not only as part of this designation site, but overall, a complete resource management system at your hands, at your fingertips, in which you can be involved, okay? So think about the future, think about our kids. For us, it's a no-brainer. 50 years from now, I'm not gonna be here, but I sure hope the bay is. I sure hope the muli vai is. I sure hope to see at least an acre, 2, maybe 3 of kalo when I leave planted in the wetland. We have partners in this particular ahupua'a who have been working for the last 25 years. I want to say people like myself. I call myself a kupuna because, you know, I knew Hi'ile when she was just starting out. And it's wonderful to see. As a community, if we are going to restore food production, if we are going to produce food, and I mean, let's be real, people, the future don't look so good. It's time for us to, as Hi'ile say, take back your community. Part of doing that is not being so afraid. If you are afraid that your fishing will be cut off, if you're afraid that somehow a selection somewhere is gonna ban you from going where you always used to go, well, don't be afraid. Be part of the process that helps you alleviate some of those fears. Think about food production. Think about the kai, the vai. Think about papahanao mo. Think about the aina, yeah? As community members, we are here to malama her. We are here to advocate for her. So it's wonderful. Whether you agree or disagree, it's all good manao. But when we have advocacy for the land, we have to think about the future and the past, bring it all together, stir it all up, and think about what we can do to make it better. Our kupuna knew how to manage resources, but the landscape has changed. So that landscape now is something new. In order to mitigate the problems that are contained within our ahupua'a, we have to use science. We have to use things and research. We even have to create new ways in which to go about doing those things. It's trial and error. It's all theoretical, but it's all heartfelt for the most part. So this may be an opportunity to expand what we currently know about our resources and their management by enabling this near site. I believe at the initial front end, it's mostly about research. So one of the ways to make that happen and start heading down that road is to support it. I support it with eyes wide open, as we should all be if we care and love our ahupua and our community. But we cannot be afraid anymore, and so afraid that you are not going to be giving to the Aina and what could make it better. I cannot stress to you, no more important, how it is in terms of vai and the waters, and how good they must remain in order to feed the kai down here so that the mulivai operates. From that, we can get fish, yeah? So I wanna mahalo ya kako, mahalo for listening to me. That's just my mana'o as someone who comes from here and has been in the process with ohanas and stuff, but mahalo for listening.
Hello. I'm going to move over to this side of the room. Anyone would like to give a comment, have a perspective, a viewpoint? Okay. In the turquoise shirt here.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Deborah Lee, and I first saw Kaneohe in the mid-1970s and was spellbound then, and I still am now. I'm in favor of the NER designation for several reasons, which I'll go into. You specifically wanted us to address the boundaries of that designation tonight, and so I'm first going to do that. I've seen other aquaculture projects, and I've heard of them that have been are in trial stages here on the island that have less success than they could have because they do not have control over the upland area. There's a golf course with runoff that's competing with the success of the project below near the estuary. So I'm sure we're all aware of projects like that. And so this includes enough upland area to make sure that whatever money's spent to has the most success possible. I also wanted to address, I'm hearing some concerns about maybe big government having some control over this area, and I just feel that the parties that are involved, NOAA and HIMB, the University of Hawaii, they all have the same heartfelt mission to preserve this area that we all have locally, so they can be part of a unified Ohana in some respect. And I personally have spent the last 5 years working with another department that's part of the Department of Commerce. And they may sound really big, but when you think about it, they have the commercial services under them and NOAA and a lot of agencies that have a lot of brain power and resources. Not only the financial resources, but a lot of scientists and people that dedicate their lives to preserving areas like this, and not just on the mainland, but globally. So they have knowledge of other similar marine environments to ours around the world. So they just have that heft to bring us up to speed and help educate us. And one of my jobs was to help local businesses succeed. And the Department of Commerce, they gave you the umbrella, the support financially, and the education to help do this. But they didn't interfere beyond that. They really turned it over to the local, local area people, and they are government, and so you know their phone numbers, you know where to find them. They're not invisible, and they can be approached if you feel that there's something that you would like to change. So,
Any other hands up, just in case I'm losing track? Yes, go ahead, Justine.
Aloha, my name is Rocky Kaluhiva, and I'm the Vice President for the Kolapoka Hawaiian Civic Club. And we were part of the group that initiated to put in for the NER. But tonight, I also like to wear the hat with my ohana. My ohana has been here for over 200 years. My grandfather was the last konohiki for the ahapua of Heeia. I was born and raised on the ili of Haiku. I recently, since I married my husband since 1959, I've been living in the ili of Heeia Kia. I just want to give you guys a short history of Heeia. Our family fought against all of the developments, the wrong kind of development for Heeia since the early 70s. I remember when Heeia was going to be a nuclear power plant, we fought against that. Remember when Heeia State Park was going to be a hotel, we fought against that. I remember when the pier was going to be built. As a young girl, I took out letters, I had the petitions for people to sign to have the Heeia Pier built. The Heeia Meadowlands, that was going to be another Hawaii Kai. Part of the plans was even to raise the bridge and make a drawbridge. We fought against that. Pai o Heeia with the fish pond is doing a good job. That was going to be a 500 berth marina. We fought against that. We didn't win the mall, but it's a good place. Haiku right now, we fought for the area in Haiku. These are the things we fought for. And we'd like, and it's now you need to develop it. All I'm into a better development for the people. No houses, fishing. And if people think that I'm going to go and support the NER and thinking that it's going to close the fishing, that's crazy. I would never do that. My grandfather was believe it or not, a turtle fisherman. It's against the law now, so it's against the law. But if it was going to close fishing, I would be against it, but it's not. And for your information, Heeia has 2 designations right now by the federal government. We are one of, I think, 9 in the nation Sentinel District. We have recently become an observatory district on a national level. It doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't mean that, it does mean something, but it doesn't mean you cannot go fishing. Everything stays the same. Don't be scared, like Donnie said. We have to look forward for the future. And coming to talking about Kaneohe Bay Regional Council, I went and testified this past month on 2 bills for the Kaneohe Bay Regional Council, and it is alive. They're going to start meeting on that. They did agree for 4 meetings a year. So this can be incorporated with that. And I'm just letting you know, my family had a meeting. We're organized. We have almost 1,000 members. I have 89 first cousins. Our family still reside on Kuleana lands up in Haiku Road. We got 26 homes there. They are also in support. We're writing a letter to support this NER. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Anyone else? Others? We have the time, we have microphones, we have a court reporter. Thank you.
I apologize, I got a head cold. I'm going to read mine so I don't muck it up too much. My name is Mark Heckman. I'm Community Education Program Coordinator for Moko'olo'e, Coconut Island. As such, it's our programs that provide the bulk of the access to Moko'olo'e to school children and the community. We hosted over 5,000 people last year in my program to the island. About half of this was community groups, but the other half were school children, an awful lot of them from the windward side. They come to the island to learn about the research, learn a little bit about the history, take classes, attend marine science overnights. But most importantly, they come out to start the process of being our next generation of marine scientists, marine managers, ocean business people, ocean appreciators, and they'll be able to use traditional knowledge, modern techniques, and tools, hopefully to make a better world. I am strongly in support of the NERS designation. It gives the opportunity to improve the water coming into the bay. Better water in, better fish, better bay, better corals, and so on. Regarding the boundaries, it's not huge, but it might be a size that we can actually, take care of. We can actually accomplish something in that size. We got to kind of ramp up here. Monitoring in the NERS will give us a snapshot of the health of the bay and the lands leading into it. The intent of a NERS, it seems to me, is to provide support to the activities that the community already engages in. When I looked at the other NERS across the country, a number of them supported fishing tournaments. That was one of the activities they did. So you want to promote fishing, get in there, get in the management council early on and tell the people what you want. Make it so. Oahu is still growing. Although I work in Kaneohe, I've only been in Hawaii about 25 some years. My wife's family got me here. I live in Kailua. And the sudden influx of visitors to Lanikai and Kailua beaches, the busloads of visitors over the last couple of years without pre-planning or thought, it's both impressive and it's rather scary. Could this happen to Kaneohe Bay? Sure. If there's not a clear vision and clear commitment to making the bay the highest quality possible, and if we don't make it clear that there are people keeping track of what's going on in the bay, it could happen. So here is one more tool for the community to utilize, to take the pulse of one slice of the bay, to provide a training ground for our Windward students. We all hear report after report of how things are going wrong, how the world's getting worse with global warming, fisheries collapse, it goes on and on. Perhaps the most important thing is to figure out ways to make sure that our kids can imagine a world that they are headed into that will be a good place. The NERS site will provide a setting for our local students to learn how to utilize traditional and modern thinking and tools to create a future that they want to live in. So I'm in support.
Anyone else who would like to offer a perspective, an opinion, have a question? Yes, sir.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Jason Philbot. I've lived in Hawaii for 10 years now, but I think I want to bring a different perspective to this. I'm in support of the NERS, and actually, I pretty much owe everything that I've learned about the ocean to actually living on a NERS. I'm originally from Massachusetts. I grew up on Heeia Bay, which is a NERS designation. And this is where I learned how to fish. This is where I learned how to sail. This is where I learned how to snorkel, water ski, any activities that had to do with the water. This is where I learned it. Not only did I learn these things, but as a graduate student, when I went to college, I came back to Heeia Bay, and I did some of my graduate research there, looking at the life cycle of young fish and how they came in and used the estuary and how they were being affected by nutrients. This really helped shape who I am and what I'm here for today. Now that I'm in Hawaii, I'm working on seafood security issues. I'm working in partnership with Pai, with Kako'o. And I don't think that I would be here and be doing these things if it wasn't the opportunity that I had growing up on a NERS. And so now that I'm here in Hawaii, it's my hope that when I have children, they'll have the same opportunity, the same opportunity that all of you will also have as well. So I think that's why I'm in support of this. Thank you.
For letting me talk. Good evening. Neighbors, friends, family. My name is David Myers. I'm born and raised in Heeia, on the water. I have seen the changes over the years. I've seen the stewardship of our state and our DNR just decimate our bay. I have seen Coconut Island, who I've got my niece-in-law, or my sister-in-law, my cousin's children go through the program. I love the program. I've spent many hours. I kissed my first girl on Coconut Island playing Spin the Bottle when I was a kid. Okay, I've been there. And I've seen in front of my house turn from a vibrant white sands, pristine coral bottom with live reefs and koli and opu and everything coming in. And I've seen just throughout my life the demise of the bay through the stewardship of the people in charge right now. I'm very leery about NERS because, well, for one, I didn't get much input on your program, your foundation. And I hear beautiful things about it, and then I hear detrimental things about it. And I think for us to come up with some kind of conclusion on voting, whether you're going to be in for the next 5, 10, 50 years, it demands more introspection and inspection. So I cannot put forth my granting this to be something that's going to happen in my backyard. I know that we have many issues in Hawaii, and a lot of them you aren't concerned with, or do you recognize or understand. I know this watershed here, this whole wetland that you're going to be taking charge of, so to speak. The waters of Hawaii are in public trust, and that's for the public good. So they can have food security, Mr. Philpott. And I think that there's been enough generations living here, respective of the island, respective of their practices, that know much better than our DNLR lead people, our state lead people. And and looking throughout my life at the past history of what I saw once to be a very vibrant bay turned into a mud pit, it doesn't give me much confidence to back anything that they're trying to shut down my throat. And I literally say, try and shut down my throat. I'm surrounded by your red lines to a degree. And I can't justify, putting another weight around my neck or allowing you to have authority over that weight. I think our dear auntie over here, she's concerned for the native lands and the taro farming and this and that. I think that's beautiful. I think that we should open up all those lands there and have community, family farming. Many of us here in Hawaii, Kaneohe here has been the fastest growing town in this island chain for many decades. And many people here that were brought up, my mother, born and raised Kaneohe, she graduated from Benjamin Parker High School. It was a farming community back then. She was lucky if she could jump on a water buffalo pulled cart to get to Benjamin Parker from her house. Her mother, she working for Kaneohe Ranch. She planted a lot of the big Norfolk trees you see at Castle Junction up there on the hillside, to pay her rent. And then at night she'd make tofu and walk it down to Kahalua and sell blocks of tofu. We're talking about teaching the young generation, the keiki. Well, I'll tell you what, they taught my mother this kind of stuff, and they took advantage of her and her upbringing here. And now, we're gonna, manipulate some young, innocent minds to, some more abuse. I think what we've got to do is listen to, this middle generation here on thoughts and really be given the proper amount of time to decide what avenue to take that would be best. If we're really truly concerned with the bay, I think the real rule of the bay right now is the lack of the fresh water that we get in the bay. Everything's being diverted down to, water golf courses and Hawaii Kai and what have you. And the streams that are constricted with the concrete boundaries in the bay now. I used to see right across, right
So
here, just inside of Coconut
I'm going to
Island
interrupt
here.
you here and ask if you could wrap it up, and then
Okay.
we'll take a few more and we'll come
All
back
right,
to you.
well, I appreciate you giving me the chance, and I hope better judgment besets upon all of our shoulders, because what has happened and what might be happening in the near future is on our shoulders to give to our next generation. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Russ. I run a Heeia Pier General Store in Delhi.
Russ, what's your last name, please?
Inoy.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'm friends with everybody here. I listen to all the uncles every morning. You hear different stories. His father was like a father to me that taught me a lot about fishing in the bay. You hear about back in the day things and what used to be, what can be, or what we will never see anymore and my kids especially, So I love the fact of what, Kako Iwi and Pai Pai have the plans and things like that. And I also understand the mistrust that the uncles that I hear at the pier every morning, of why they don't like that, why they're afraid of it. I understand what I'm friends with Kelvin too, like why there's mistrust and the things that come out. What I really want to know is if we can designate the area, we can support the NERS, how come we cannot simply say that there's a guarantee that fishing and diving won't be shut down? Plain and simple, common sense is how I was raised. You tell the community and you put it in writing, 1,000 years from now, there'll still be fishing and diving. You're gonna get support from the uncles because they all are family members and support these guys. So I don't understand why it cannot be put down black and white. Fishing and diving guaranteed, never gonna get shut down in the bay. We support the NER, we support them. Why is it so hard?
Oh, I don't have answers, but I think it's a good point. Thank you.
So are you for or against?
I think, let me see if I got this right. I think he said if there could be something written into it nice and early about the protection of fishing and diving, that it makes good sense. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
There
is no usage, there is no
Okay, that's okay.
I am for the NERS with the guarantee that the bay will not get shut down from fishing and diving.
Yeah, have it both ways.
Okay, other hands up? Just check on the other side. Okay, go ahead.
Aloha, my name is Wally Ito, and my interest and passion is limu. So I grow limu for restoration purposes. I educate myself about limu, and I work with Uncle Henry Changwo to pass on our knowledge about limu. So anybody want to talk story about limu, come talk story. But so when I heard about this NERS designation, good stuff, the internet. You can go on, you can find a lot of information. And one of the things that, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as being designated a NERS system, the federal government provides no control. They say nothing about how you're going to manage your fishery. What they do say is that once the area is established as a NERS, then it's the state's responsibility to designate your fishery management. And so all of this manao about fishing and you can take away my fishing rights, and that's I agree. I'm a fisherman, I'm a diver, been diving for 50 years. I want to be able to dive too. Yeah, I want to be able to continue diving. But this is not the forum for that part of the conversation. Once we establish, if this NERS is established, then the state is going to have to hold the same type of open hearing to get, to establish how we're going to use it and what kind of rules. And the state, we heard this, as far as the state is, concerned about the NERS area, they can do anything from zero, no take to no control. You guys can do anything you want, all with a top and down range, but that has to be established by the state after we establish this as a NERS. Okay. One more point about there was a slight mention about the ecology of estuary system, and I just want to make a point that the estuary is like a nursery, for your marine marine environment, but not only marine environment, your water's mauka. There's a lot of organisms, your hihibai, oopu, opai, that spend a lot of their life cycle in the mulibai and in the area right around the estuary. So if we can preserve, restore the estuary, you're going to get more fish, you're going to get more hihibai, more opai, mauka. So I think this is a very important designation, and I'm 100% in support.
Thank you. Looking for hands. Looking for new hands. Raise it high. Oh, look out.
Aloha, my name is Kapua Cavello. I'm Heeia's sister. Not that it's a mystery. I just have a few thoughts about this designation relative to My family's longstanding history with the bay, using the bay. My dad is a fisherman. My grandpa was a fisherman. His grandpa was a fisherman. I mean, it's many generations using this bay. So the last thing we want to do is see the bay become a place that people cannot use. That being said, I think that it's worth some serious recognition on the part of this community that Kaneohe Bay is broke. Yeah, you don't see fish like you're supposed to see out there. Of the days of old, right? Full hukilau nets. You don't see top predators, hunting all these wonderful schools of bait fish. You're not seeing that because it is broken. It is unhealthy. It is our kuleana as a community to step into this discussion. As you guys say, I agree, DLNR is not doing what they should be doing. They are going to be a partner in this process. This is an opportunity for us to restore a watershed from Mauka to Makai. This is an opportunity that we can't pass up. It gives support to the groups that are already doing wonderful things out there, and they can't do it alone. We can't solve this by only addressing the upland challenges, right? The threats don't just include everybody in all these meetings I've ever been to is pointing fingers at everybody else. All these factors, alien species, limu, overfishing, unsustainable fishing practices, pollution, erosion, water, lack of water going into the system. These are all things we have to do research on because until we get the foundation to understand what's really happening, we're just spinning our wheels, right? We cannot try to solve these problems without having better understanding. And if we cannot trust anybody, how can we trust anybody more than the people who are putting in this application? Like, I ask you that. These people are working their blood, sweat, and tears in our community. Not just my sister, but Kako, Evie, all these people. This is what they do because they love it, they believe in it, and they want to see this resource preserved for future generations. And I think, it's pilau if we cannot see that and open our eyes. We all live on the bay, we know this resource, and it's time for this NERS designation. I think it will give recognition and financial support for the organizations that already do so much for our community and give back to our community. And the days of, standing back and waiting for things to happen are over. We just grab the wheel and we say, this is what we want to learn, this is what we want to understand. Give us funding for this and do it. And that's my mana'o. I don't work every day with these guys, but I volunteered with all of them. What they do is amazing. I want my keiki to see fish. I want my keiki to be able to gather from this resources that their papa gathered from, that his papa gathered from, and Tutukane's way before that. And if that's not available for my kids and for their kids, then what have I done in my lifetime, right? So that's my mana'o. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Aloha, it's me again. Anyway, I just have another suggestion. When we look at the ahupua'a and we're sort of addressing it, think about it like an archaeologist. We're making it all discontiguous when really it's one whole systems approach. So I would like to suggest that we consider expanding the boundaries to the entire ahupua'a of Heeia. I know everybody might go, huh? What you talking about? But it's probably better than trying to go after a special management district through DLNR where you're involved with. We have what we have in our ahupua'a, a plethora of multi-jurisdictional, multi-agencies that we have to deal with. I think that if we consider a boundary as a whole systems approach to ecological revival and restoration, we cannot separate the two. Part of the problem I have in my current research is that, we're only focusing on the coastal. Kapua said, too much on the uppers, but in truth, it really requires us to address the entire system because what happens at the top of Ioleka'a stream where I'm at totally affects the Mulivai down here. So my suggestion is, maybe phasing in, or I don't know how that works. And, that might be biting off more than you can chew. But I also think that this is an opportunity to take a whole systems approach on a particular ahupua'a. In 1998, when we first started, that's what we wanted to do. The whole thing. And people are like, eh? Oh, we can do that. So I think if you think about it that way, it's like, what can we do as a community, all working together to restore food, right? Because that's what we should be thinking about, food. Okay, so that's all.
So new hands, or if not, thank you, sir. The Hapai lady's getting her workout.
I just have a question.
Yes, your name, please?
Oh, Charlie Rupun.
Thank you, Charlie.
Why does the upper boundary end at Kaikili Highway? Why doesn't the boundary include, if it's an estuarine system, you gotta include the source of the water. Why? And there's no housing there. Why doesn't it go to the top?
So I will be the first to admit I have no answers to this, but I think what I'd like to do is turn your question into a suggestion, which is change the boundary, the proposed boundary, right?
At least that boundary.
Yeah. And what would your recommendation be? How?
It should include the entire source of water for this estuary.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Others, so either new voices, repeating voices? Yes.
Aloha mai kako. I know plenty of you guys. Ile, kako oiwi, pai o Heeia, Tiraki them, Kopal them, Charlie them. But anyway, I don't belong to any of their organizations, but I really respect the work that they do, especially all the guys that are on the proposal, like Pai o Heeia and Kako Oiwi and HIMB. I really like what they do out there, and I think they are good people trying to do something good for our bay and our community. And I support the NIR. I think it's an opportunity to bring in some resources and do some good things. But I also am a fisherman, and I grew up fishing in the bay. I don't have as many generations fishermen as a lot of these people here. I can't, pass several fingers of them, but I love the bay just as much. And I understand people's concerns, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's a good opportunity to potentially do something awesome. And I think, you heard a lot about this opportunity, like maybe expand it throughout Heeia, make it bigger within the ahupua'a, and kind of create an ahupua'a reserve, I guess, so to speak. But coming from a different ahupua'a in the bay, Waiahole, and like Hi'ile echoed, there's a connection between the estuaries, that they don't really stand alone, that only they can thrive only together. And I think, maybe if there was talk of like expanding the opportunities, because I don't know if it's going to be restrictive or not, but if I think of it as an opportunity, then expanding the opportunity to the rest of the ahupua'a ohana, think of the ahupua'a as ohana together, helping each other, then maybe it would be good to have some ahupua'a that have estuaries that are still pretty functional, with less restoration needed, but maybe that can serve as benchmarks or targets, and that can also open up the opportunity to, give a chance for these great organizations like Paipao Heeia and Kako'o to lend their mana'o and experience doing education with communities to our other apua'a who probably would like to start that, but maybe don't know where to begin. A lot of them are much, much smaller than Heeia, which with less the brain, power that can be spent towards these kinds of activities. Maybe in Waihole, a lot more people are farming and fishing and stuff, and they could use a little bit of maybe mentoring, so I think if I'd like to add anything else to this besides my support, something different, is that this opportunity for us to work together as a Bay. And I'd like to see these kinds of educational, I see it more than just research, but this is an educational opportunity to engage the rest of the community. I'd like to see those opportunities, I'd like to see something in the plan that engages the network specifically, and for it to be down to say, okay, look, as part of our goal is to do, outreach to other Ahupua'a, to do educational opportunities there. And I'm really nervous. I can't even remember what I said. I don't usually get up and speak in front of people, but I usually just stay in the background. So that's my manao. Mahalo.
What's your name? I'm sorry, I didn't get his name.
I'm sorry. Your name, please, could you?
Makaua. Kaua oa, Fraiola.
Thank you.
What time are you going to close?
Wait.
Sorry. The question was, what time are we going to close the meeting? It was posted at 7. We've got a little bit of wiggle room, but really it's when we are done hearing from people who have something to say about Heeia.
Excuse me. Hi. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Seal Roberts. I'm a relative newcomer. I have only lived in Heeia for 20 years. I started out on the mud flat right next to the fish pond. I have a great connection to this. I won't go into it. But if you look at the map or the picture that shows us what we're talking about, we are unique within the United States. Puerto Rico is not a state. We are. We have the only tropical coral estuarine environment of all of them. We have an opportunity here that nobody else has. We already have HIMB and all the research being done on the reef by the scientists there. We already have a Hawaiian fish pond, a functioning Hawaiian fish pond. Nobody else has anything like the fish ponds in Hawaii. And we have the Mauku side. Even though we don't go all the way up to the ridge, we have a large part of the Ahupua'a. Think about it. We have an opportunity nobody else has. So I am very much in favor, as a 20-year newcomer, of putting in this nerve. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Justine's got. Thank you. Somebody way in the back.
My name is Mike Chaffin. 30 years here, just across the road. We don't live on the bay, but we live on the wetlands that are behind our house. And this is not a comment for or against, because I don't quite understand what's coming at us. I just don't think there's enough detail there. And maybe that's an inevitable part of this because each NARE is different. But I would have a cautionary comment to make. We all have electricity. How many of you have any idea what went on at the last regulatory hearing or the last public hearing for HECO? These things tend to get ahead of us and get away from us, and we get back to our lives. If this many people show up each time NARE or the state offers an opportunity to comment, I would be very optimistic. If, as is so often the case, we get busy and we get pulled back into our busy lives, it will gravitate to a few people with very specific goals and agenda, which may be good, may be bad, may be indifferent. I can't say at this point, obviously. But if you're going to turn the responsibility for the maintenance of this area, we've been here 30 years, by the way, I should add. My children are raised here, my grandchildren are being raised here. If we're going to turn that over to government entities, and granted it's a partnership, but the government is always there. The partners may or may not be. I would suggest we think about the post office and the IRS and the VA and so on and so forth. The goals are good. The ideals are indeed ideal. The reality is sometimes a whole lot less than we expect because we don't stay involved. So if you support this system or if you don't support this system, every meeting that is held for the benefit of the public ought to look like this or even more so. If it does, then I have confidence that what will come of it is good. I may not agree with all of it, you may not agree with all of it, but it will be a consensus of the community that works for the good of the community. If, as is so often the case, these meetings atrophy to a few officials that show up and a few zealots, if you will, then it may be something that we turn out not to like so very much. What was described in the Northeast sounded very ideal to me. I could get behind that. I just hope we have the will and the energy to maintain our current commitment and maintain it going forward, to observe, participate, and to modify and to build an organization or a plan that really makes sense for the community as a whole.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kyoki Fukumitsu. I was trying to stay quiet in my corner over there. But it's kind of relevant because I was just putting a fishery proposal together to submit before the state. And I was online looking for some information. And then I got wind of this project that was going on. And so I'm real interested. I think that, definitely the impact of Kaneohe Bay speaks for itself already. And I like the fact that the Ahupua'a system, with the buffer zone going on, the watershed management, the ecology, environment, and most of all, I was looking at the opportunity for my own kids. If you come down to, I'm from Waihole Waikani, Hakipukoloa, and this is where my program that I've been proposing is going to be generated. And of course, we have the 9 Ahupua'a that enter into Kaneohe Bay. So Kaneohe Bay has always been like the source. Everything enters into there, all the resources enters into there, and you can tell the way how things are changing because it's pretty dormant. Anyway, I was looking at getting the kids into like the hatchery, the nursery, running the reefs, the coastal zone management, the ocean resource management, the county planning plan on sustainability on Golopoko, and looking at job opportunities for my kids. I mean, personally, I have 11 grandchildren. I would love to see them, picking up some Heeya alongside the scientists and getting more information and stuff like that. And I know it's pretty delicate because a lot of times the scientists can take the credit and run with it. So of course the people are going to be cautious. But then we can use those things to train our kids to utilize these resources in a sanctuary. And it all has to do with the whole Kaneohe Bay. All these 9 Ahupua'as, they all link up. Without this water management, it doesn't develop into the ocean resource management unless we make a complete Ahupua'a kind of a program. But for me, education always leads to more opportunity so that, what I recognize a lot in the Bay or in fishing is that those whose lifestyle depended on fishing, even though their jobs were not sufficient enough, they could rely on fishing. And at the same time, the grassroots guys can do fishing. So it's a balance of their survival at this moment. So I just kind of watching and looking and see the pros and the cons of what's going on in this kind of community meetings. So I myself know where to make my move as far as teaching our kids the Mauka Makai. And I'm talking like Kahalu Elementary School, Waihole Elementary School, and Ka'awa Elementary School. And instead of our kids learning about fishing, they're learning more about McDonald's. So, and then all the way on up, instead of overcatching the fish or overfishing, learning to give back. So I think one of the comments I have is giving back. We already know how to catch the fish, so we got to learn how to plant the fish. And it starts on Mauka Makai. Anyway, I just thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any other hands? Raise them high in case I miss.
Hello, as everyone know, I just kind of walked in. My name is Midori Rumpunwarn. Oh, that's for you. Rumpungung. Okay. I just walked in. I just quickly glanced at what you guys had for presentation today. Didn't see all of it, sorry. But I am a natural sciences student at the university, and we, to say the least, we have grave concerns over the ecology and the water resources here, and I hope that we not only include like the wellness of the water and the land that's around us and that we live on and nourish ourselves with, but also the social aspects, because sometimes people suffer as well. Again, I wish I had more to comment on the actual material, but I really hope to be a part of like what we can do to help change it. And we have a sustainability summit coming up in a few weeks, and if some of you community members are interested, please come by, because we need to start doing more things than getting reusable cups and because sustainability isn't just about recycling, it's about a lifestyle. So,
thank you.
No, I just went there.
And it's not too late to participate. Actually, you sort of lead into something that I wanted to add, is that if out of this meeting and hearing somebody talk about something, or when you're driving home, something comes to mind, you've got until March 7th to submit some stuff, so it'll give you time to look at the packets and get a little bit more immersed, but there's time. And in the packet is an email address that you can send it to, so March 7th.
Myself, you folks come here and you don't understand why there's so much emotionally charged issues here. It's because we, the little people of the state, so to speak, have been kind of overrun and ignored. And that's why we're just now trying to set some kind of, parameters for our own neighborhoods. And I know it's completely, some of these topics are outside of your realm of understanding right now.
We want to hear from you.
What I would like to do is say to brother over there, I came over to his side of the bay, and I got some opie to replace mine on my side of the bay, but I never asked you guys permission, and I'm sorry for that. But I get opie on my side of the bay, I come back and put them back in Hakipu, okay? And see, that's how we do business. Each and every ahupua'a, we ask permission to enter and to, explain what we are doing when we go inside their backyard. And that's what the local people are used to doing, to be neighborly with one another. And a lot of the state politics and federal politics, they don't have that kind of understanding. They just come in and say, move over, we're doing this. And that's why you're feeling so much pent-up emotions over here. I've got a couple. I know you folks mean so well out there at Coconut Island, and you guys want to just, benefit the world and make everything better. But in my own history, watching you, being a neighbor of you, I've seen you acclimate tilapias to be saltwater fish, and then you let them loose in the bay. Now they're all over in front of my house eating the natural indigenous fish.
You've got about 30 more seconds.
Okay, and the ogo, the invasive species of seaweed, that was brought in and granted permission by the state through UH and through commercial entities. Am I wrong?
No.
Oh, not HIMB. Okay, they were granted permission, and the commercial entity fell apart and dissolved, and now we've got this huge problem to deal with. And then that's what happens when the community isn't involved. And then that's why you have so much charged issues about what's happening. Heeia, I watch the guys in Safeway. They got the guys to come in and scrub and chemically clean their floors. And they pour it in buckets, and they go right outside and dump it into the parking lot, which drains right into the bay.
Can you wrap it up now?
And mahalo for listening to me. I'm sorry if I offended anyone.
No, I appreciate your passion. Thank you. All right. Any more? Because I'd like to tell you what the next steps are. If any hands, please raise it high. Okay. Rebecca or somebody from staff might have to correct me on this, but here's what I think I see, is that all of this gets sort of transcribed and put together with the rest of the stuff that was received and everything that comes between now and March 7. That gets looked at very carefully, and then it's called a site selection document would go to the governor in May. And am I right that it could say yay, yes or no? So it could go either way. We don't know yet. It still has to be analyzed. In June, if it looks like it's going forward, there would be a nomination sent from the governor to NOAA. If that kept moving on, sometime in late 2014, there would be a call to develop a management plan, which would then come back to the community and have you talk about all the things that you've talked about that are really important to make this work. So do I have that kind of correct? Okay. So, I don't know. Yeah. Cool. So the question is, at what point do the boundaries get finalized? And here.
Hi everyone, I'm Leo Sanchez. I'm the CZM manager for the state. The boundary, the actual boundary, there's a boundary delineation process within the management plan. Are you going to talk about the management plan in the community and how and then you're actually going to look at the boundaries? Right now, that's a proposed boundary that came from the applicants, right? And I know when we looked at it, we also analyzed it to get to this point. And basically, it's what they could manage, because there's that piece of can you actually manage the area? If you go Ahupua'a all the way, can you have the resources? But that's the proposed boundary, and then we will then in the management plan, if it does go forward, right? You're talking after the nomination document goes forward from the governor, NOAA approves of that, and then it comes back. So there's still quite a ways away to get to.